Hey there, I'm Evan. I'll be your tour guide through the American workplace. To start off, we'll start by talking about diversity. And this can be tough from a managerial standpoint to handle and manage because you just don't know how customers or even your staff is going to react to someone who's different from them. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. So, I would say, especially in the Southwest United States, with there being a lot of Mexican and Hispanic people down there, with a lot of them speaking Spanish, it's almost essential for really any job you have in that region for you to be able to speak Spanish. If you can't speak Spanish, you won't be able to communicate with a very large customer base in that region. And so that's just one of the vast majority of ways that diversity can have a huge impact in the workplace. Next, prejudice and stereotyping really go hand in hand. And this is something that we've all experienced from time to time, whether it's at the workplace or not. Prejudice is something you have against someone or against a certain group of people. And so it's important to respect your coworkers' race, religion, culture, and this is in order to foster a healthy workplace. All right, next we move on to job satisfaction, and this honestly is a super important thing for especially Americans to understand because let me just read you off this little statistic from Forbes. More than half of US workers are unhappy in their jobs. More than half of American workers. This is astonishing because that means tens of millions of Americans go to a job that they simply aren't satisfied with. And this is a huge problem that can obviously be fixed. And one of these things that can be done to fix this is for managers, especially, to pay closer attention to employees' levels of job satisfaction. This is important because as a manager, what you'll get out of this is you will have higher customer satisfaction, better job performance from your employees, and a lower turnover rate. And these are just some of the benefits that managers can come to expect if they pay closer attention to employees' levels of job satisfaction. Now, moving on to emotions and moods. This is something you don't really notice unless one of your coworkers, is moody or something along those lines. We really should be able to recognize these moods, though. Like some universal emotions, for example, are anger, sadness, happiness, fear, just to name a few. And so I'm sure that the vast majority of us can recognize when someone is in one of these moods, and it's especially noticeable for people who show their emotions well. Like if your boss gets mad at you, you'll probably know. Uh, and so having something called a high emotional intelligence basically means that you can perceive others' emotions well, and you can also portray emotions well. So that's something that we should all strive to have, a high emotional intelligence. So, personality and values. Obviously, everyone's personality is different. There will be certain personality types that you won't vibe with. Like, I personally don't vibe well with someone who's very strict, someone who is all about rules. I am a chill person. I have a chill personality, a laid back personality. So when I meet someone who's all about the rules and is strict, I don't vibe well. I tend not to vibe well. So what most Americans need to realize is that a lot of these complaints to HR come from the fact that people just have different personalities, and different values. And speaking along the lines of values, people have different values. And what this basically means is it's something that you find very important in your life, a standard that you'll uphold no matter what. And this varies from culture to culture. So if your workplace is very diverse, you're probably going to have people with different values. But if your workplace is less diverse, it's all of you are probably going to have similar values. All right, next we move on to individual perceptions and decision making. So each one of us actually perceives the world differently, and this can be seen from the way that people tell stories. You know, your friend may tell a story about you, but you may have remembered it differently, and that all comes down to perception and how we see things. A lot of times, people at work will have this overconfidence bias, especially if they're looking to get promoted or get a raise. And so, what this means is that, let's say their boss asks someone to do something. The boss asks, "Hey, can someone format this Excel spreadsheet for me?" And so, someone who has this overconfidence bias will say, "Yeah, I'll do it." And so they'll have good intentions going in, but they might not even know how to use Excel. And so this is something that the overconfidence bias that we all have to some extent comes in, and it can really hurt productivity, to where if that boss had just given that assignment to someone who actually knew what they were doing, it wouldn't have wasted people's time, and it would have been more productive for the workplace. But, you know, it's hard to overcome overconfidence bias because it's coming from a good place. The last thing I want to talk about is motivation. So motivation is something that we've all struggled with at least one point in time. And what I'm specifically talking about is a lack of motivation. So this can be in the workplace, at your job, maybe at the gym, or in your relationship, or whatever it may be. Everyone has experienced this where they just don't have motivation. And furthermore, what motivation means is it's the amount of effort that we're willing to exert towards a goal. Another factor in motivation is this theory, Maslow's theory, this hierarchy of needs. And what this basically states is that if our needs at the bottom are psychological, our physiological needs like food, water, shelter, if those needs aren't met first, then we're not even going to begin to think about our self-actualization needs. So if we're food insecure or homeless or anything like that, we're not going to worry about whether we got the promotion at work, or whether or not we completed our goal of going to the gym. So motivation can't even begin to come into the picture unless we have our basic needs met. I'm here with my mom, Jill Johnson, who doesn't want to be on camera. She is owner of Everclean Commercial Cleaners, and she opened this cleaning business back in 2011. So I wanted to ask her what motivated her to go from the traditional workplace to opening her own business.
What motivated us was the freedom to make our own money and make our own schedule.
So further along those lines, did you ever feel like at any point you had sort of an overconfidence bias where you went into it thinking you knew what you were doing, but once you got into it and actually started doing it, you didn't?
We were confident in knowing how to clean and knew that we were good cleaners. The thing that we were not confident about was the pricing. We always charged way too low, and then we ended up having people who we had forever, and then we got new people, and we had to charge those regular prices, but then up the people that we had from the beginning.